Hi, I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to go into the Miriam Joy vault and pull out some of my Christmas videos that I think you really enjoy. Let's get started. And welcome to my studio. Today we're working on our alcohol ink. This is a lace vase and we're going to show you how to make this. This is a lot of fun. I hope you see so much potential in this. For this project we're going to be using caulk silicone, and this is Alex Fast Dry. You can paint it in 20 minutes, but that does not mean it is ready in 20 minutes. We'll talk about dry time a little bit later, but it is important to get this brand. I've been using this brand for several years. You do want the white. You don't want it clear. I do not have a problem with this turning yellow on me. It really holds its color and it is nice and stable. I don't have any problems with it falling apart as well. I do purchase mine at Walmart. I can find it for about under $3, so check there. And if not, you could probably find it at any of your hardware stores or things like that. You can cut it off with your scissors depending on how fast you want it to come out. You may want it smaller, you may want it bigger. On mine it also has a tip cutter that you can cut the tip off as well. This is just a caulking gun. You can find it in the section with the caulking as well, and we're just going to dispense it that way as we go. When I'm done with it, I just use a little plastic bag and a rubber band around it. You can just use saran wrap or something like that as well. And I have stored this for months at a time and have never had a problem with it drying out. So that is what we're going to be using. So let's get started on our project. To load our caulking gun, we're going to trim off the edge, and you can use kitchen scissors. And I don't make the hole too big because I don't want it to dry out. But you can, if you're doing a whole bunch, you're not worried about that, you can make it bigger. That's totally up to you. I've never had a problem with it drying out as long as I seal it correctly. So now we're just going to load that in. You can push the little trigger till you get that nice and tight in there. And you also can turn it manually if you're having problems with that, and we're ready to go. So to fill our mat, we're going to use our caulking. And one of the first things I do is I go get a wet rag, just damp, but something I can wipe the caulk onto and not worry about the paper falling apart or anything, and I can throw it away when I'm done. So I've used this several times. Yours can be brand new. That's okay. And we're just going to apply it directly onto the mat. And I'm going to do a section at a time. So this mat has 3 different pieces, and you can work a section at a time, I think is the easiest. We also have a 3-inch and a 4-inch spreader to help you. We are providing those at miriamjoy.com just so you can make that convenient. And what you're going to do is you're going to work this back and forth in these until we fill up all of these holes. And you don't want to see any open areas in the holes. And if it is, I do all 3 sections at a time. If that is easier for you to do, then do that. So we're going to continue applying this and working this until we get all of our cracks and everything filled in. Now this line can easily be taken smaller if you're not careful where the tip of your spreader fills. So we want that not to be caved in. We want to keep that nice and straight. So when I'm doing this, I just go ahead and do the whole mat because I can use them for other things as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get the mat done, fill it up the whole way, and then we'll talk about just cleaning it off some more. So I've got this pretty well covered, but I want you to see these little tiny holes that I've got right here. We want to make sure that those are all filled in so our design turns out really nice. And we can use some of this extra frosting and scrape it as we go and fill those in. Make sure that all your edges are really covered in good, and when you're scraping that you're not making any of those come back, and that's why having the bigger scraper really helps. And again, we talked about not scraping like right down the middle of those with the ends so that those don't sink in. So I'm just going to come back now and we're going to remove as a lot of this extra on top, and this really goes a long ways. You'll be surprised how many of these you can make with our special frosting, just one tube. So it's gonna go a long ways, and we're just going to try and get this as clean as we can without creating any holes. And it's okay to leave some of that. I'm going to show you how we're going to clean it off. But the less we have, the easier it is going to be. So think about that as well. I do have a little area right there that I kind of got too thin. So I want to pick up some more frosting and just lay it back in that area as well. And we're going to let this dry. Now, dry time is going to kind of depend on the project you're working on, how thick it is. If you used a different type of frosting, which I don't recommend, or caulking as we call it, and the weather, the humidity, how dry it is, and things like that. So those are all things that we want to take into consideration. I like to let mine dry at least 12 hours. I prefer to let it dry a day so that it is nice and dry. But make sure that all those little holes are showing, that they're pretty well clear. And we're going to dry that and then come back and show you how to clean it up after it's dry. We're going to let this dry at least 12 hours, and it's going to depend on your humidity, how warm it is. I actually personally like to let mine dry for at least 24 hours, but you're going to know it's done because it's going to pop out easily. If it sticks at all, it is not done, but we don't want to take it out yet because all of these little guys are going to show in the window. If you can kind of see right there, those are still attached, so we have to clean this all up. And now this is a bigger one. Like on this little guy, I just rub it with my fingers and he's done. And this is our Christmas bell one. This is a really cute one that I'm going to do a lot with doing the holiday. It's just beautiful, and all the snowflakes are so delicate. So anyway, getting back to this guy, we've got to clean all of this stuff off, especially in all these little tiny lace places. It's really important to clean it off. Now I just wet my fingers with some water and I just start rubbing. And you're going to rub until you get every single one of those nice and clean. I have tried to come in with a kitchen sponge. It's a little bit more aggressive, and maybe kind of just doing the bigger areas is helpful. And so I'm just going to stick with just this area right here for now. But once you start to get that kind of done, then still come in and complete it with your fingers. Now, because we're doing such a bigger one, it's going to actually wet it again, and I would honestly like to leave that in until it's completely dry again. It's not going to take that long. It's just going to kind of, you'll notice it's going to be dry to the touch and probably be done within an hour or less. But that way we're not re-wetting anything and kind of we don't have to worry about it changing shape or falling apart or anything like that. So you can see this takes a little bit of work. It's so worth it though. So, but you can see how I've got every single one of these completely cleaned off. And once that is dry, then just gently, because you don't want to break them, especially on the ends, start to pull that off, and then you get this wonderful, wonderful lace. So to make our vase or candle holder, I used a glass cylinder. I found this at Dollar Tree, but you can use anything that's glass. I found this cute little candle. This was just a tiny little candle that you could do as well. So there's all kinds of fun things that you could use to do the project. Just think outside the box, what's glass, what you might like to do it on. Now that we've got our lace all dry and ready to go, we're going to start working on our vase. And the first thing I'm going to do with my vase is I'm going to take my 91% rubbing alcohol and I'm going to put it into a spray bottle, or you can also just put it on with a cotton round. And we're just going to prepare the glass, get it nice and clean for our alcohol inks to go on. And just use an old tray, anything. You could use a paper plate as long as it doesn't leak through, something that you don't mind getting dirty. And we're going to be using just Adirondack alcohol inks. You can find these in your scrapbook section at the craft store and use your coupon, or if you want a certain color, we also have a good supplier at bluewhalearts.com. So that's up to you. Now I'm going to kind of talk to you about the two different styles I did here. On the first one, I just kept it really, really simple. You can use whatever color of blue you want to. I'm also going to be using the silver, which is a mixative, so it's thicker, as well as the pearl, and that kind of gives it that shimmer color. So I'm going to explain how I did the first one, and then I'm going to demonstrate how to do the second one. On the first one, I just took my alcohol inks and I just did them a section at a time, and then I switched colors and just went up about 1/2 inch and kind of alternated that and just did that all the way. You don't want to squeeze it that it's running more than about that much at a time, and just work your way up to the top. I wanted these see-through. I did not want them solid so that my candlelight, or if I was just using it as a vase, your filler would show through. So either way, on this one I'm going to do it a little bit different though here. And I haven't quite decided if I wanted to use my sailboat blue or my mermaid blue. I want to kind of take a look. I think this is a little bit more green. So that's pretty too though. I might go ahead and use my mermaid because I've got the other blue on this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of playing with our silver, and if I can get a close-up here, you can see how we got this silver lining, and that's kind of an awesome look. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. I've shaken these really well, and then I'm going to leave their lids off so that I can play with them. And I do want to grab my gloves here. And it's better to keep your colors on the plate or tray or whatever you're doing as well, because it can leak onto them and leak down, and you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to be doing this a little bit of time. So I put that blue in there, and then I put the silver kind of on it, and then I'm going to come back in with my blue a little bit more. So I'm going to add some more blue here, and I'm probably not going to do this first layer, but you can see we're already starting to get that look that we want. So I'm going to kind of do it in sections. So I put that silver on, and then I put the color back into it, and then it's going to drip, and you'll see how pretty that starts to look. So if you're doing a bigger piece, it's obviously going to take more of the alcohol ink. So that's something to think about as well. And if it starts to drip, you can turn it and manipulate this a little bit more than the other one where it's just going down all the way. But you can see how we're starting to get those really cool outlines. And I'm also going to start coming back in and just putting some pearl here and there on it as well. But we're going to be having all of these fun colors coming down. And you don't have to do every one of them. We can do them in every other one, however you feel that you want it to be. The silver doesn't run as easy if you don't have the color underneath it. It kind of just sits there on its own. If you don't put the color underneath it, it's harder to move it. I'll show you one there. So that one is just kind of sitting there now because I caught it so ahead of time. It is moving earlier. So I'm going to work my way back up, and I'm also just going to take some pearl, which is kind of a rainbow color, and I'm going to hit it here and there. And we're not doing this solid. We want pieces to show through, and just kind of hit it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and work my way up a little bit further, and then we'll come back. So we're continuing to work, and the one thing that I do want to say is only work on a section at a time, and we'll always work from the bottom going up. You never want to do the other way because we want this to drip towards the bottom. Try to set it onto your plate. We'll talk about how to clean your table up if you happen to do that in just a minute here. But just continue to make it however you want to make it, and then we're going to make sure that we get one final one. Now, because we have the lace, we don't have to worry about this as much. If you weren't doing the lace, you may want to do like a solid silver or something at the top that comes down. That's really up to you. And you want to make sure that you're still adding your pearl while it is wet. Don't wait for that to come back and add that pearl color in there as well. So okay, I've almost got it where I want it. And if there's any areas that you don't think has enough, or if it's got too much silver, I've got more silver in this one than I did the other one. I like it this way, but you don't have to do as much silver. You could do that nice and light. Again, that's just a personal opinion. That's up to you, however you think you need to do one. I'm going to be honest with you. Every single one you're going to do is going to be different. But I love this kind of stained glass peekaboo feel that we've got going on here. And I just think this is really awesome. I like the way this one turned out. So I'm going to leave it like that. Now, if you have a dot like I did right there, I'm going to spray this with my alcohol ink. I'm going to let that soak for just a minute or so, and then I'm just going to wipe that up. And the same with your hands. You can get a lot of it off with your alcohol as well. So let's get started on the next step. Once this is dried, what we're going to go ahead and do is heat set this, and I'm going to be using a heat gun or embossing tool. I always get asked if you can use a blow dryer, and it's probably not as hot, but if that's all you've got, that's probably better than nothing. So what the heat setting does is it keeps it from bleeding when we go to varnish it. So I'm going to just heat set this. And I want to make sure that I get each section as I'm doing it. It doesn't have to be a real long amount of time. And then once you're done with that, I'm going to take it to a well-ventilated area, and I am going to spray varnish it. And I always get asked what type of varnish, and I always say whatever you like, whatever you have. The only thing I will tell you is I like the non-yellowing type because you don't want anything to yellow over a period of time. I use Krylon, Rust-Oleum because those are the inexpensive ones. Now to spray varnish this, we're going to keep this at least a foot away from your project. Do this in a well-vented area. You want to make sure that if it's not below probably 50 degrees. I have kind of sneaked mine outside and then brought the piece back inside real quick after I varnished it. Gloss will have a better chance of not turning white on you than your satin color. I will tell you that from experience. But do a dry coat, and what I mean by dry coat is you should not see any of the varnish wet on it. You don't want it to bleed, so you want to do maybe a couple of just real light dry coats, and then you could do a little bit heavier coat, and when that's dry, then we'll start to apply the lace and the Once you've removed your lace out of your mold, you want to make sure that's nice and dry, and it should come out really easy. There's we can use it a couple of different ways. We can cut this one in half and use this one, or if you wanted to even do thicker on your vase, you can. That was really, really pretty as well. You could even cut it up higher, and so it was like that top part with the bottom. But I think because of all of the snow kind of stuff, I want to keep it really simple with just the lace part itself. So I only have one of these. I've used up my other ones, and I have a few of these. So instead of cutting this one in half, I'm just simply going to trim this part off of the other ones and use those, and I'll use this for something else. And I'm just going to cut a straight line across. I've also done this with my paper cutter, so however you want to cut this, you can do that. And we need one for the top and one for the bottom. So go ahead and get that done, and we'll glue it onto our vase. So what we're going to do, and I'm just practicing on a clear vase while I've still got my other one drying, once I've cut them, is we're going to see where they line up. And this one happens to line up, and if you use that middle piece, you may want to trim on both sides to kind of get them to line up. But right here, I have kind of where I know it is going to line up, and I'm going to take my scissors and just trim that on one side or the other so you don't have any of those little holes open, and where it meets up so there's not too much pulled. And we're going to do that for both the top and the bottom. I wanted to go into a little bit more detail on this so you kind of understand. When I'm meeting up, I try to meet up in an area like this that's down low. You don't really want to meet in an area that's high, and that's why I was saying you might take it both on either side. Now where this is going to meet up here, we're only going to have one scallop instead of the normal two here, but it's such a small difference. You can always put it in the back if you were going to set a certain way, but most people won't even notice. So whatever frosting piece you want to use or we're using in a project, we're going to put it on with our E6000 spray adhesive. And this is an alternate to our sticky E6000. This is something we don't have to touch. And we simply shake it, and then we're going to spray it right on. And I have a spray tray that I just do my E6000 on. But when we're working with a frosting item, we want to make sure that you have the rough side and the smooth side. So we're going to spray it on our rough side. And once we've shaked this, we're just going to make sure that we've got it coated really well on the top and the bottom. And give that just a minute or two, and then you can go ahead and apply it directly to your project. And then I just take a paper towel and wipe my tray off so I don't have all that sticky on it, and use it for the next time. So once we have this on, I'm going to put this right underneath this lip and just start to slowly walk it around. And I don't want to pull it tight because my cutoff was not tight. It kind of bumped up together. In fact, I've got it way too much still. So I am going to trim this edge off. I guess I measured it wrong here. So I'm going to trim just this very edge. And they should join up together without being pulled really tight. And if you needed to pull it tighter, if you were using a different vase and needed to pull it a little tighter, then pull a little tighter. There is no right or wrong. Now for this one, I went ahead and did the bottom the exact same way as I did the top. I made sure that I applied my second layer exactly when I lined up to the other one because we don't have it meeting exactly at the same point, so we have done that. Now, I came back in, and you don't have to do this, but I wanted to put some of the snowflakes. This is from the Christmas Bell frosting mold. I just love these little snowflakes, and I put them just randomly on here and there, and this is totally up to you. Another thing that I did would be really cute with these that I've done with the mold is before you put the frosting into your mold, add a little bit of glitter, and then you get some sparkle to it. So I'd really like to go back and add some sparkle to some of these as well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish putting my snowflakes in, and then we're pretty much done. So I went ahead and put as many snowflakes as I want on, but I also wanted to show you, these are the little fairy lights that we have at MiriamJoy.com, and these are wonderful. I love these. These are so bright. My husband and I, they take AA batteries, not triple. Put these out, and we tried to see how long a battery would last, and I think we did 5 days and they were still going. So they last a long time, and they're on wires, so you can bend them as much as you want to, but they are really bright and wonderful, and I just love them. That's one of my favorite things this holiday season. So they do come in white, red, green, and multicolor right now. So if you're using something like this, it's going to show through whatever color you have on your vase. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this video. There's so much potential and lots of fun things you can do with it. For your lace frosting mat as well as your Christmas bells that has a snowflake on it, come and purchase those at MiriamJoy.com. Give us a thumbs up and share our videos. Have a Merry Christmas.